vine dresses. And these parables are quite powerful, and a powerful tool and technique that our Lord Jesus Christ used quite often. Because within a parable you could have so much meaning and layers of meaning. And it is said that in some of these parables, the whole story of the whole gospel is included. And this is one of those parables where you have the whole story, not only of the gospel, but of the whole Old Testament and the New Testament is all included in this short story that our Lord Jesus Christ presents to the Jews. And he says to them that there was a man who planted a vineyard, and then he leases out this, or he instructs these vine dressers to look after his vineyard. And he travels and leaves them to their work, and after a long time he returns by sending servants, and sends 3 servants, and each servant is beaten and is given no fruit. Finally he sends his son. His son is then killed. Now it's very clear this is the story of the whole Old Testament. Some of the church fathers say that these servants, the first servant is the natural law that God put in our hearts for us to know what is right and what is wrong. The second servant is the written law that God gives to his people to know what is right and what is wrong. We reject that. Then God sends his prophets, the third servants, and they are rejected. Finally, he sends his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ. He was telling this parable to the Jews, and they very well knew of this imagery of a vineyard, and that they were responsible to bring fruit from this vineyard. In Isaiah chapter 5, it says this: "Now let me sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved regarding his vineyard. My well-beloved has a vineyard on a very fruitful hill. He dug it up and cleared out its stones and planted it with the choicest vine. He built a tower in its midst and also made a winepress in it. So he expected it to bring forth good grapes, but it brought forth wild grapes. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, please, between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why then, when I expected it to bring forth good grapes, did it bring forth wild grapes? And now, please, let me tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away its hedge, and it shall be burnt, and break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will lay it waste. It shall not be pruned or dug, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they run no rain on it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant plant. He looked for justice, but behold oppression, for righteousness, behold, a cry for help." And so it was quite clear from the Old Testament, from Isaiah, that they very well knew that Israel was the vineyard, and that God had expected it to bring forth good grapes, but when he would come, all he would find is sour grapes. And then he asked the question, so what am I going to do with this vineyard? What's the point of it now? It's not bringing forth good grapes. What's the need to maintain this vineyard if it's not bringing forth good grapes? Now, this is not a parable just about Israel, but it's also about the church and about us individually. Always this imagery of Israel can then be reflected as the church, and then also the individual soul. And what we learn from this is that actually God has an expectation of us. He didn't just create us and leave us to be and to enjoy this world and that's all. But he expected something from us. He expects from our life good grapes, good fruit. He invested in us. Anybody that has an investment expects the investment to yield something for them. If I have an investment property, I expect it to yield a certain return. I want to get back at least 5% return on this investment. But you never leave an investment that's just losing money for you. You'd want to get rid of it. Remove it from your portfolio. It's not a good investment. Well, God has invested in each of us. And He expects from each of us yield. He expects each of us to bring forth good fruit. These vine dressers made two mistakes. Their first mistake is they thought the owner of the vineyard is not around. He's not present here. We are free. He went away to, it says, to a far country, to a far place, for a long time. So they felt this distance. He's not here. He's not present. We can do what we like. There's no expectation. The second mistake they made is they thought He will never return. He's gone. So they're living their life, they're living their day as though He's not present and He's not coming back. And that's the mistake that we make and that society makes. That we live our life as though God is not present and He's never coming back. But if we live our life knowing that He is present, He's always with me, He's always watching me, and there'll be a day that He's coming back and I have to be ready for that at any moment to show Him the fruit that I have created in my life. In today's psalm, it says that look upon your vineyard and visit it. Look at it and visit it. So He is present, He's looking, and He will come, He will return to it. And we live our life to produce these good fruits because He is looking upon it in expectation, and He will return to it to take from it this good fruit. This really is one of the main purposes of our life, to do good, to bring forth good fruit in this world. It's one of the reasons we are created. And it is the expectation of our Creator that we do good. When our Lord Jesus Christ said that in the final days, when I will decide who's on my right and who's on my left, who's in the kingdom and who's not, He didn't say, I'm going to make sure that you had a certain amount of faith or that you went to church a certain amount of times. He said, I will take those on my right and say to them, when I was sick, you came to me. When I was in prison, you visited me. When I was naked, you clothed me. And they said, when did we do all this? He says, when you did it to the least of my brethren, you have done it to me. What's He looking for? Good works. That we do good works with our life. And if there's no good works, then the question comes as it has in Isaiah, what do I do with it? Like, what's the point of it? You know, in the Old Testament, when the generations after Adam and Eve got worse and worse, and God looks to creation and He sees that all of creation is wicked. God says, well, what's the point of it? And even the language that God regretted creating humanity. And so He actually removes all of humanity to start fresh. Because the purpose of goodness, of a relationship with God, has been lost. That's the purpose of creation. If that's been lost, there's no reason and need for it anymore. And He removes it. So for us, we live our life very clear that God is watching us. that He is present amongst us. He is present in the liturgy, in the Eucharist. He is present in our lives. He is present within us. As His name, Emmanuel, God is here. God is present. And we live our life with the hopeful expectation that He will return. And if He will return, then I have to answer for this investment that He has put in me. And in fact, He's invested His only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, the life of His Son, for us. It's a big investment. And He expects from us goodness, good grapes, good fruit. And so we live our life knowing that our Creator has this expectation. And we live our life doing good and producing good, because this world is in need of goodness. And we are the Christians who are meant to be the salt of the world, the light of the world, the flavor of the world. And glory be to God forever. Amen.